From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. And now, here they are, Jim and Rich.
We're ready.
Oh, John DeVita getting down.
John is loving our
John!
theme song here.
Get down with your bad self.
What a way to start the show.
Oh.
I wish we had a visual of this.
Oh,
Jim.
my gosh.
John is getting down.
Oh, my gosh. Leon and Massaro off and running on another edition of Armchair Experts, like it or not. So, Mr. Massaro, what's up with you today? What should we get into? I guess baseball season actually started yesterday.
I have to tell everybody we did our what we laughingly
referred
to as show prep. But Jim,
I don't remember what we talked about.
I got the advantage of more show prep because I had coffee this morning with Andy and Jim and Bill and Don.
Little Jimmy Sunshine?
No, not Jimmy Sunshine. Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly. Okay.
And you know what? I got even more show prep. And you know, we talked about we said we're going to talk about baseball. And
right.
Jim Kelly says to me, he says, "Are you going to talk about the fact that a lot of the Sox crowd got in late to the ball game yesterday because of the new major league rules that say everybody's got to be wanded or go through a magnetometer?" And a lot of the ball game was well underway.
Wow!
When a lot of the crowd eventually made it in.
No,
I said, no, I didn't even know about that, Jim. But then he showed me the little article here in the Sun-Times, and I guess it's a new Major League Baseball rule. So, you know, that'll do wonders for attendance, don't you think? Especially if your team is lousy.
Yeah. I mean, 37,422, 40,615 paid yesterday for the White Sox opener. I wonder how many of those, the difference between those two just decided, well, I'm out of here.
You know what? I got enough of being wanded and magnetometer at the airport. I'm going home.
Or were they packing?
I'm going over to McCuddy's and having me a libation.
If you go over to McCuddy's, you'll be quite alone because McCuddy's has been gone for many years.
See, I didn't even know that was the real name for the place. I just made that up.
No,
it was. See, there is something there in the back of my head that occasionally comes to the front.
That's right. I miss McCuddy's.
So what did you? You know what? What did you think about the games? Did you get a chance to watch any?
No.
Okay, well, that's our usual thing. We didn't watch anything, but we're going to comment on it.
I was busy yesterday, and you saw what sort of wonderful mood I was in.
You had a good day yesterday.
Yeah,
Jim.
you saw what sort of mood I was in last night when we had what we laughingly referred to as show prep. Well, I just want to know what you think the high point is of yesterday's Cub opener, and I'll give you several choices here.
Oh, okay. I get choices.
Emilio Bonifacio going 4 for 5, and that puts him on pace to have 648 hits this year.
He'll be another Tuffy Rhodes at this rate.
Anthony Rizzo striking out 3 times yesterday, twice with men on base.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, with men in scoring position last year, Anthony hit 191.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Olt. Had an 0-for yesterday with 2 strikeouts, or the fact that Jeff Samardzija enhanced his trade value with a really very good performance. 5 hits over 7 innings, no runs allowed, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, 89 pitches. Very efficient performance.
You know, I don't want to comment on Bonifacio or Olt because those are brand new guys, and you know, they're one day in a Cub uniform, and we've seen great debuts by other Cubs, and we've
Tuffy
seen
Rhodes.
You know, guys who ended up being really good players who probably had offers their first day in the majors. So I'm not gonna comment about that. But the 2 things I will react to is, number one, Jeff Samardzija, who is our best pitcher, and not that good of a pitcher in general, I would say, but had a really great game. And as you told me, he's already got his house on the market.
He does.
So he knows he's going to be gone. So we're going to trade even more pitching. And, I mean, we've given away how much pitching over the last couple of years. I probably, if I tried to go down the list, I wouldn't remember all the names. I mean, it's not that long of a list, but I'm not going to remember all the names. So I that's my first thing, and it's not unusual for the Cubs to take somebody's very, very good performance and just totally blow it, no matter what era Cubs you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, the more I think about Anthony Rizzo, when we got Anthony Rizzo from the Padres, and he's originally a Red Sox farmhand, now the Padres are usually just they're power strapped, so
Right.
they're looking for somebody who can hit the long ball. And his time with the Padres, he had a short period of time 2 or 3 seasons ago with them at the end of the year. He hit 140 something, I believe, with a home run.
Buck 40.
And the Padres actually now it's looking like they might have got the much better part of the deal, because my understanding, Jim told me this morning, Andrew Kashner threw a really great game against the Dodgers the other day.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And that's who we traded to get Rizzo.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe this is just a guy who's not ever really going to hit major league pitching all that well. Now, you know what? I know that
you hate to look at that as the face of your franchise.
Well, I think that's the reality. It does not look like this guy is going to make consistent contact. And the other thing is, when he's making contact, it doesn't seem like much of it comes in key situations.
Yeah.
So those are my 2 reactions. As far as Bonifacio and Holt go,
that was
one game. We'll see what happens as we go down the road with them.
That was just throwing out something just to be you.
Just to be me.
It's
the
interesting.
Sox fared better.
It's interesting here as I'm looking at, and I know how much you are about analytics in baseball.
Oh, I love them.
I know you do here,
sure.
Because Fangraph has done some projections, and a couple of them of interest, and we'll talk about the others the White Sox ones when we get into that. Among the Cubs, Fangraphs projects a step forward for Anthony Rizzo with a 3.3 WAR after a 1.6 in 2013, wins above replacement. And the projection has him at an 815 OPS, that's on base plus slugging, up from 742. Recovery is also expected for Starlin Castro. His projected 1.9 WAR and 0.727 OPS is up from a minus 0.1 and 0.631 last year. In other words, he cost them games.
Well, you know what? Of course, Jim, I just wonder, projections based on what? What are we talking about here? Projections based on numbers that they pull out of the air? How do they figure this stuff?
The projections based on current talent levels. If you go to Fangraphs.com and follow the thing for depth charts and position standings, etc., you find that out. Before playing their first games, both teams were projected to finish in the mid-70s in victories, with the Cubs at 75 and the Sox at 74. If I were doing an over-under, if they quoted me as 75, I'd go under.
You know what I would say? The first thing I'm going to say about again, analytics, as you know, I don't like them.
Yeah.
But I would say the most important thing to me is, and whatever sport you want to pick, ask the guys who play with these guys, would you go to war with these guys? I would think I'd say, let's just take a guy like Anthony Rizzo. My feeling, just from what I hear, is you're probably going to get almost every guy in the team that's going to say, hey, Anthony Rizzo's a great guy. He's a great teammate.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. That's
going
to be the reaction.
Now, here's the key thing that differentiates him from, because there's going to be a lot of guys you can say that about. But is this the guy, now here's the other question, is this the guy that you want to see at the plate in a key situation, late in the game, late in the season, in a key game? You may get a totally different answer, because those are 2 totally different things.
True.
Are you a good teammate? It doesn't, how could you say this? It doesn't take that much to be a good teammate. You got to be a good guy, and there's a lot of good guys in sports, I think. Mm-hmm. But do you want to be in the trenches with this guy, or do you want this guy up?
Do you want this guy up in a critical point?
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So
you know what I mean? As you just said, one game into the season, we can't really say, "Oh my God, it's a disaster."
No. I mean, it was a well played game, obviously,
mm-hmm.
and a well pitched game.
The other stat, the other projection that stands out, Jeff Samardzija stands out in the Cub rotation, but number 2 is Edwin Jackson. It's an odd projection considering what his ERA was last year at 4.98 versus Travis Wood at 3.11. But you know what? Their peripheral stats are very similar. Jackson strikes out about 6.93 batters per 9 innings and a little over 3 walks, and gives up .82 home runs. That 0.8 of a home run is always a tough one.
Isn't that a triple?
That's a triple.
Or is that where you are trying for an inside the park home run
and you get thrown out at the plate? Then it's 0.8 of a home run.
Okay.
Yeah. Where Travis Wood is very close to that, 6.48 strikeouts, 2.97 walks, and .81 home runs. There's the analytics for them for the day. Win-wise, I mentioned to you last night that I thought that I had this feeling about the Cubs that they're either going to be surprising us as to they're much better than they look, or they're going to be really just god-awful this year.
Well,
and I'm not sure at this point.
I would say I don't know that I'm responding exactly to what you just said, but I think that last year at the end of the season, as we talked about which team did we think would be able to turn around faster, because they both had terrible years, and I think we both said at that point that we felt the Sox would. And we didn't have anything concrete to go on at that point, but I think that some of the changes that the Sox made, not to say that they couldn't blow up in their face, but I think what the Sox did was it made more sense than what the Cubs are doing. You get a guy like Eaton, who is supposed to be a gritty, character type of guy who's going to lead off. You take a plunge on a guy like Abreu because you needed some consistent power, because Konerko is ready to retire and Dunn really hasn't been consistent for us. So you try to address that need. And I think that what they did, and you got Garcia as well at the end of last year, who's going to also help to address that need. I think what they did in terms of what I feel my knowledge is of baseball, it made more sense to me than what the Cubs have continued to do under the ownership of the Ricketts family. Mm-hmm. So, and one game doesn't tell the story.
One game doesn't
but I
tell
think
you
the
anything.
Sox will be a better team than the Cubs.
I agree with you. Certainly this year I agree with you. Because I can see very easily the White Sox improving 10 games.
Yeah, I think so.
Over last year. If the Cubs crack 70 victories this year, I think it's a plus. I think it's a plus for them that they can actually get over 70 victories this year.
You realize, though, Jim, we're sitting in the city of Chicago, which is what the third biggest city in the country, and a major market, 2 teams, similar to New York and L.A., and we cannot, we're talking about it'll be a plus if one of those teams can
get 70
wins. That's pathetic.
That really is pathetic, and I can't remember a baseball season beginning with such a tremendous amount of apathy on both sides of towns. Sox fans, they'll always come out when they've got something, when they've got a good product. Mm-hmm. Cub fans come out because people come from Iowa and the park is cute.
That's true. Yeah.
And once the tour buses stop, and I don't think that'll ever happen.
No, because people want to see a Major League Baseball game, and they
well,
don't get
then
a chance to
what
do
are they?
that.
What are they doing?
Well, they could probably go see similar action a lot closer if they go to Des Moines.
They can go to Des Moines, or if you want to see Major League Baseball and you're downstate Illinois, go to St. Louis.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much time do you want to waste on the Cubs and Sox.
I mean, the one other thing that I say, you talked about the way the Sox turned it around, and the other issue that there was always the accusation of the White Sox, especially when Kenny Williams was the general manager, that he stripped the farm system.
I guess that's possible.
That's what it was. But when Rick Hahn took over, he tried to build on the fly. Epstein and Hoyer and the new regime on the north side just immediately said, well, we got to blow this up and start all over again.
Yeah,
I don't know if that, in retrospect, I give them credit. They have been transparent. They have done everything they said they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They've never hidden anything. Was it the right choice? I don't know, but they're going to stay the course.
It looks that way.
You know.
I was going to say, though, when you use the term rebuild on the fly, I think you said.
Yeah.
I think maybe not rebuilding, but I think every organization really is doing their year-to-year thing on the fly. I don't care if you're the most successful organization or you're a bottom-of-the-barrel team. I think what the Cubs are doing, you might have people who are more historically knowledgeable about the game than I am who could say, there's other organizations who maybe have done this. But I don't ever remember anybody really taking this drastic of an approach, similar to what the Cubs are doing. This is super drastic.
This really is. I mean, you're talking about going down to the lowest level in the minor leagues and rebuilding. And I understand his philosophy that you always want a flow of talent coming up through your system. So when somebody hits that point and decides, well, I'm going to test free agency and move on, you wish them the best and say, here, we have so-and-so now that can fill in, and he's ready. Or you have, as they're starting to refer to players now, you have currency to go out and make to fill your needs during the season or fill your needs in the off season.
Well, my question in my mind is this: when you get to the point where a lot of these people you're developing are there, and right now, even if most of those position guys pan out, then I'm talking about the Cubs now. It doesn't look like you're going to have the pitching when they get there.
No.
So
the pitching.
My question would be this: you get when you're a free agent. Okay, you'll get certain free agents there's certain guys, I want to go to a winner. I want to be with a contender. Okay, those are guys with winning attitudes, and that's where they want to be. They want to have the opportunity to be champions. There's other guys who'll just jump around for money, and those are guys you probably want to stay away from.
Right.
Now, when you have the situation that the Cubs have orchestrated here, which type of guys of those two types are you going to really attract? And I think that's part of the problem, another component to the problem that is being created here. What type of free agents, when you finally do decide to get into that market, who are you going to attract? Are you going to attract the really good guys that are going to be valuable for your franchise, or are you going to attract the guys who are just there for the money?
You're going to get guys who are just going to come for the money, and if you want to go back and look at history and that, just go back and look at Milton Bradley.
Yeah, well, that was
that was a guy. Oh my God, he's going to be great, and he's just there for the money, and he was an absolute disaster, and everyone knew that before he was coming in.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
that is true.
But
it's I don't know. You want to pursue the baseball anymore? It's what the heck are we going to talk about all summer if these guys don't at least do a little something?
Honestly,
do we have any more Olympics coming up? We might have to do the Olympics again, or maybe we could go back to the Winter Olympics.
Maybe we'll go back, rehash the Winter Olympics. We'll start doing softball.
We could do softball.
You're you're Mr. Softball.
Yeah, you know what? It wouldn't take me. I'll tell you. One year when I was out of softball, I ran into a guy named Stevie Heinold over at Dappers when it was still open on Cumberland, and I said, Stevie, you got to fill me in. What's happening with softball? Who went where? Who went to this team? And who's going to be good? And because I had lost touch with the game, and I knew everybody Stevie talked about, all the teams he talked about, the guys. And it took him like an hour, and I was up to date. Didn't have to see a game. I knew who was where and who was with who, and I knew who was going to be good and who wasn't going to be good. And I mean, that's it doesn't take much to catch up on softball.
We may have to have softball. We may have to have semi-pro football.
That would be great.
I keep trying to get Terry over here, but I never.
We
never
keep
him
talking about having guests. I mean, we could bring in Gino Nudo maybe for high school football, and he also knows semi-pro football.
Yeah, we can even have whoever is going to be the head coach at Ridgewood if they.
At Ridgewood?
Yeah.
Well, you want to bring in Chris Zach? You're talking
If Zach,
about?
if
Yeah,
Zach's
we could
returning,
bring in Chris. Yeah.
The only reason I said that is I couldn't think of his name and I didn't know if he was coming back.
No, he'll be there, but we could, we could bring in Chris Mraz. We can bring in a lot of people. So there's a lot of potential for guests, and if baseball pans out the way it looks, we may have to utilize guys. If any of you actually are listening, you may be called on. We may even have Al Marks drive in from wherever the heck he's living and have Al could go on for a while.
Al could tell stories.
Yeah,
and that would make for a fun show.
Now we had talked a little bit though, Jim, about possibly talking either the Hawks or NCAA.
Well, we
basketball.
got another team we need to talk about too. A little bit.
You don't tell me. You want to talk about the Bears again?
No, I want to talk about the White Sox. There was another opener yesterday.
All right, I thought we touched on that opener.
Well, I saw your complaint. I did see the item about the people taking forever to get in.
Okay, so what's your feelings about the Sox opener?
Honestly, I'm looking at this. Eaton, and again, we're only talking one game. Eaton was 2 for 4. I think he's going to pan out to be a very good ball player. Abreu was 2 for 4. Her first hit in the major leagues was a double.
Okay.
Adam Dunn struck out once. All right. Garcia 2 for 4. I looked at his record, especially in minor leagues. Even though they keep touting him for being a real power hitter, I haven't seen really heavy power numbers.
Well, how many years did he actually? I agree with you on that because I remember when he came up with the Tigers, and I think he actually at the end of the season that was a couple seasons ago when the Tigers were in the World Series. They brought him up at the end of the year. They put him in right field. I believe he actually started there or platooned there in the World Series in the playoffs. And then the next year, out of spring training, I don't think he made the team. And then I think he came up with them a little bit last year, and then there was the trade.
I haven't seen any power.
Let's say this. I think I'm not sure about the power. I'm not sure that he's actually a power hitter. But the flip side of that is if you look at guys like Johnny Bench or Carlton Fisk and you look at their numbers in the minors, their power numbers, they weren't super outstanding. So this could be a young guy who's going to develop into a power hitter, possibly. So that may be what they're seeing.
Very much so.
But I was going to say the thing I see about the Sox when was it 2005 when they won the World Series.
Yeah.
When you think about that, a lot of the guys on that team, you had Aaron Rowan, you had Joe Creedy, you had Konerko, you had A.J. Pierzynski, and there's probably other, Jose Uribe. You had a lot of gamers, and you had a lot of character guys that were in the clubhouse. And I think what I see Rick Hahn...
I'm seeing him here.
Starting to try to replicate is that type of player. I think when you get a guy like Eaton... And I don't know what Garcia and Abreu are going to be like. Well, he traded for Davidson, who's in the minors currently. Mm-hmm. And then you see the guys that he's kept. I think that's what he's trying to replicate. Good ball players who have character, and I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah. I was looking the other day as I was wandering through Mariano's. You
do a lot of that.
I have a very limited life.
Yeah, Mariano's and the office and the coffee shop.
Yeah, it's a very sad life right now. I happened to pick up Who's Who in Baseball.
Oh, did you buy it? Okay.
No, I just.
You looked through it?
I'm too cheap, so I looked at it.
You looked through it.
But I happened to notice that Alexei Ramirez, a number of years ago, he was quite a power hitter. He had a little pop in his bat. Mm-hmm. 20 home runs, 21 home runs. Last year hit a half a dozen. I wonder what happened.
Yeah, I know that
did he clean him up.
Did
he get off the stuff?
No, I think one of the problems that I think that I like Alexei. One of the problems that I think he has as far as offensively is they have a tendency to yo-yo him around the order. He'll be like 8th or 9th, and you don't see a whole lot of good pitches down there. He'll be 2nd, which is where he's got actually a job to do. He's
move somebody along,
theoretically moving the runners. So I think it's got maybe more to do with where he's hitting in the order than the fact that he's lost power. And I think he's the type of guy who's a team guy, and he's trying to do the job that they ask him to do wherever he's at. And I think it just hurts. I think that hurt his power numbers. To be honest,
I think that may have been it.
Yeah.
Overall, victory number this year. Got a number in mind on the White Sox?
I don't do those type of predictions. I'll say, you know what? Let's just say I'll throw
You
a
think
number out there. I'll say 80 wins.
I was going to say I'd go about 78.
Okay.
There's some people that say, you know what, they might challenge. A lot of people are picking them third in the Central, with maybe a challenge for a playoff number or a wild card spot, but it may fade. And I think it's a legitimate prediction when you look at them. Obviously, I just look at the Cubs, and like I said, they're either going to be a lot better than everybody thinks they are, or they're going to be really, really awful.
Well, I think what might happen with the Cubs is that even though the pitching isn't super strong, I think it's the stronger part of your team. And the pitching may start out strong. You always get the benefits of the early season.
Right.
The advantage being more to the pitchers than the hitters because of the weather in various cities. But you may see the pitching start out strong, and after a while,
the league catches up.
That will collapse, and the offense won't be there to really pick that up on a consistent level. So you could be looking at more of what you're talking about, a fairly disastrous season. I really think it's got the potential to be that.
Yeah, I really think so too. Samardzija gone before the end of the year? Gone before the end of July.
Well, you know more about that than I do. I mean, if his house is already listed, he's got plans of leaving.
He's got plans of leaving. I think either by trade or at the end of the year.
Right.
Because I just don't think he's impressed with what's being put around him. Although I do not think, as he views himself, I do not view him as a number one starter.
Well, what Samardzija, I want to say, is 26, maybe.
No, I think he's older than that.
He's older, 27, maybe.
He might be 29 or 30 by now.
No, I don't think so. He's not that old, I don't think, Jim, because even though he made his Cubs debut fairly early on, and I know that he finished up at Notre Dame, so he was probably 20 or 21. I'm saying he's still 27, maybe. My point would be this: you can. If you go to another organization that is sharper than the Cubs and you have the type of stuff that Samardzija's got, I think you can resurrect your career and become a very good pitcher. And I think there's two things I think with Jeff Samardzija. I think that comes into play. I think he realizes he's not reaching his full potential because everybody that you hear talk about this in baseball, whether it's the Cubs announcers, the Cubs brass, other teams' personnel, they say that his stuff is among the best. So it's twofold. Someplace where he's going to have a good supporting cast and maybe pick up a few tricks along the way that are going to help him be the best pitcher he can be. The other thing is you got to think of where he came from. Notre Dame, whether they're up or down, is a classy place to be from, and they're all about being the best that you can possibly be. And you go from that, and your first professional experience is with the Cubs, which is a disaster, and you want to get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it.
Jeffrey Samardzija, born January 23rd, 1985. He's 29 years old.
29, okay.
He was born in Merrillville, Indiana.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
So he's 29.
29 years old. So I really kind of think you're probably looking at maybe a good year might be 69, 70 victories. And I saw an article here somewhere that
somewhere. I better pick up the slack while you pick up the paper, I better fill the airwaves with brilliant thoughts while you're rummaging through that paper.
Well, that'll take about 12 seconds.
I tell you.
Yeah. Theo in the Sun-Times yesterday, Gordon Whitmire's article said that he feels that having a winning environment before wins and losses is important.
A winning environment.
He wants a winning
environment.
So I guess what he's looking for is, I don't know, I guess he wants warm and fuzzy out of his manager.
I don't know. I think I think he's been reading a little bit too much Alice in Wonderland or something. Isn't isn't that the book where everything is sort of upside down and nothing is the way it's supposed to be? So we're going to get the winning environment before we get any wins or losses.
I think
how does that work?
I think he's in bizarro world. Actually,
I think
he's at.
As my father used to say, don't BS a BSer. Okay,
that's right.
And that's what he's trying to do.
That's what he's attempting to do here.
Yeah.
Mr. DeVito is looking
at us. He's looking at us like we're ready to go for a break.
It must be time to break.
He got up. He's moving around. He stopped dancing. He went into his hibernation slumber, and now he's looking at us like it's almost time to go for a break.
And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Are.
You are listening to Armchair Experts on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVito Broadcast Center. And now, back to Jim and Rich and Armchair Experts.
All right, after that first half hour of scintillating conversation, John, after we broke the station, John put it back together again, and here we are for another 30 minutes.
Now could we talk about some real fantasy baseball? I see that fantasy baseball. I thought that was an article about the Cubs and Sox.
It is.
It is. Okay.
It is. I love this. I love this comment at this little bit at the end here. Renteria was who wrote this dribble here? Rick Morrissey. Renteria was undeterred after the game, saying both teams played to the end. That certainly was true. Ricky, I'm having a hard time referring to the manager as Ricky. Ricky is who he is, Epstein said. He's very positive, very enthusiastic. The last line in here is perfect. Let's see what he looks like in August.
I was at a place one time on Mannheim Road in Stone Park, and the guy who's the face of the organization kept referring to everybody as, "Hey, Ricky. How you doing, Ricky?"
Just talk about the bars I hang out. Jeez.
Woo, boy.
Yeah.
You know what? What did you just say about was you talking about Epstein?
Epstein talking about Ricky being very positive.
Oh yeah, well,
very enthusiastic.
I'm really, that comment about both teams played to the end. Don't they always play to the end? I thought that was part of the whole thing.
It is a 9-inning game, at least.
I don't care how bad or how good you are. You always get to play till the end.
You always have to play until the final out, or until you get into extra innings and the home team scores first.
Well, that's what happens when you need a comment from a guy. I'm not going to fault Renteria too much, but when you need a comment from a guy every day, it's you're going to run out of things to say. So I'm not going to lay him out for that comment, but that is sort of a weird thing.
Yeah, something like that makes me think about that scene in Bull Durham where Crash is giving Nuke the list of cliches that he has to recite when he gets up to the show.
When you get up to the show,
When
right.
you get up to the show.
What else have we got here, James?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about now? I'll just sit back and let you...
Well, I wanted one of the things we had mentioned was as you put it, the demise of the Blackhawks.
Yeah, and do we need to come off the ledge?
No, I mean, you know what? I think this is pretty understandable. But the disappointing part is I think they've physically come to a little bit of a wall. I think they could get around that, but what I see too is, and I think we were in agreement on this when we talked about this, is mentally I think they've hit a sort of a wall as well.
I think so. I mean, this is the point right now where you peaked early on. You're dealing with injuries to two of your best players.
Mm-hmm.
You've had another player who was showing signs of being moving up and being a major part of it who's had a tough season.
Yeah. And I'm not totally convinced even at this point, Jim, because you're referring to Brian Bickle.
Bickle.
I'm not. I was thinking about this a couple days ago. Here's a guy who was hurt early on. He may still be hurt, but he wants to contribute to the team. And then I'm thinking Quenneville on occasion has sort of called them out in the papers that he needs more of an effort. But, that might be part of the whole thing to conceal the fact that he's playing injured. In other words, I'm calling the guy out a little bit because I don't want anybody to know that he's playing hurt to take advantage. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's a possible scenario because I I don't think Bickle doesn't look to me like the type of guy that's jaking it or not putting in the effort.
No.
And I think
No.
he may still be suffering some effects of whatever injury he had early on, and he's just trying to play through it. And they're trying to sort of trying to sort of play along with that whole thing, so that the whole league's not knowing, hey, this guy's out there playing hurt and he's not up to stuff.
And you know what I mean? The game the other night in Pittsburgh when Taves got hurt, I guess there was, a good old-time hockey coach, that you would have taken a shot at Orpik, but it never really happened.
Yeah, no, I'm not understanding what you're saying. I
Orpik never. No, nobody really took a run at Orpik.
Oh,
after,
yeah. I agree. There, what in hockey, actually, it's interesting. I just got done with. There's a new biography of Keith Magnuson, and it goes into that because Maggie obviously was the Hawks guy for a long time that did that job, and he'll even
lost
say
many a fight.
He even jokes about it in the book. He says himself. That he probably lost more than he won. But the object was you go in and you do what you're supposed to do, because that's, you need somebody to stand up and do that job. That's a job that somebody's got.
So I'm getting a fight in nickel bag one night and lose that too.
Yeah. He would not, I don't think he himself would even claim that he was a great fighter, but he needed, he wasn't afraid to do the job, and that's what he did. But you need somebody to stand up, especially when one of your top guys, they take a run at him. You can't let that happen in hockey. I just don't. In fact, I know Jim, speaking of Jim Kelly, he gets upset even in football. He said, they'll take a shot at a guy. He always brings up the incident a few years ago when Pittsburgh and Cleveland played each other. And I think the two guys was James Harrison was the guy who hit, and
Harrison,
and Colt McCoy took the hit.
Yeah,
and he said, "Whatever happened? Why didn't Harrison get laid out later in the game because of that?" And I agree with them. You can't let that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah,
it's a physical game. If you let it go, then they just know you're a target. It may not be the PC thing to talk about, but you know what? They go after Jonathan Taves. I don't care who it is, Sidney Crosby or whoever else. That guy, somebody on the other team better get whacked.
Yeah, and I mean the comments here, and I know the comments were made. And I'm just looking at Mark Lazarus's column, talking about Mike Milbury saying, if I were coaching this team, I'd say let's do something about this. I think I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that the writers are all saying, well, they didn't do anything dumb, but they didn't really send a message.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happened. This reminds me of what happened the year after they won the Cup the first time, where everybody was taking a shot at the Hawks, and there was no response to it. And you brought the people in because you didn't have the heavy hitters, because you lost Buff,
mm-hmm.
and you lost some of the bigger players.
Well, look at the beginning of last year, Jim, when nobody will. Again, we're in a PC world where this is you're not enlightened if you say this, but
everybody
probably
gets
one
a
of
trophy.
the biggest plays in the Hawks season last year was when they played. I believe Rafi Torres was on the Coyotes,
mm-hmm.
and Jamal Mayers went right after him. First thing, boom, got that out of the way. And then they both said the correct thing in the paper. Oh, that's not what it was all about. Torres, and Mayers both said, no, that's, something that happened in the game. But you know what? It was all about the fact that Torres laid out Hossa bad. And you know what? Hey, you're not going to get away with that.
And the one difference was Torres was a cheap shot, was a dirty hit.
Mm-hmm.
Orpik was a clean hit.
Mm-hmm.
He just hit him hard.
Yeah. But
Orpik was a clean hit. Orpik hasn't had a fighting major in the last 4 years.
Well, here's the point, though. It happened, I think, now it might not have been Orpik both times, but it happened earlier in the game where they took a run at Taves and cracked him. I think the obvious thing is, clean or not or dirty, Taves was a target in that game for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you can't let that go on.
No.
You just can't. It's a physical game. If you let that happen, then they're gonna, you know what? Then you're just a target. You're not even playing the game anymore. You know, and you make your best players targets. I don't think it's the right thing to do. So even if Orpik's hit was totally clean and totally legal,
It was just a hard hit.
then somebody better put a hard hit on one of their guys. That's all.
Take
one
a-
of their better guys, as a
take-
matter of fact.
Nail Crosby.
You know,
Because you're not going to get you probably are not going to get Orpik to drop the gloves.
no,
Because
I mean,
that's just
he's-
not the player he is.
No.
That's just not the kind of player he is. So
But I just think think of it this way though, Jim. When you play now, NFL is the one league, professional league, that's a little bit different because it should be pretty easy for the players to get up for 16 regular season games and spread out over mainly a week's time.
once a week.
But when
basically.
you're playing 84 games like they do in the NHL, and you just came off a really very, very, very unique situation in that the season previous to that was condensed and abbreviated. The summer was shortened. You started out now in the 84-game schedule, which then got
interrupted for 2
interrupted
weeks.
for a couple weeks, and in the Hawks case, you still had 10 guys now playing, sort of shifting gears and playing with national teams. Then that stopped, and you shifted gears again and went back to the season. I don't want to make excuses for the Hawks, but I think what I think I see happening more than anything is it's good if you can differentiate one game from another. If you can do that, you can be pretty successful. It's not that easy to do, I don't think, when you're playing that many games. What I think has happened is for the Hawks, because of the unique situation they've been in over the course of the last couple of years, is these games have sort of become a blur. And I think what they really want to do, they may not admit to this, but in the back of their minds, they're saying, you know what, let's just get the season over and get to the playoffs where we can focus a little bit and it means something to us.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're going to recover and do well in the playoffs because everything I see is adding up to not very much success.
I'm kind of feeling the same way. I mean, I'm just looking at the schedule here for this coming week for the Hawks, and they have another stretch here of 3 games and 4 nights. And you're going to reach a point. And again, you had so many guys trying, and I think at the beginning of the year, it's sad to say, but consciously or unconsciously, they peaked early on because you had all these guys trying to impress everyone to make the national teams, and you had 10 guys off a roster make their various national teams.
Yeah.
It says something about the quality of play here, but it also says, well, you're going to pay for it again somewhere down the road.
Which they're doing. I agree.
Which
I
is
agree
what
with
they're
you.
doing. I mean, it's very easy. I think it's very easy, and we could probably be very confident that if they go up against Colorado in the first round, it's probably going to be a first-round exit.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of
Especially if they don't have the home ice.
if they
advantage.
don't jump over Colorado and get the home ice, then they got a big problem.
Yeah.
But you know what though? I was having said that, because I was thinking about us maybe talking about this prior to coming here for the show, and I'm thinking that is the great thing about sports though. You don't know what's going to happen. You could look totally terrible, and all of a sudden, boom, maybe one play, one big hit, one goal, whatever it is, and all of a sudden it can all turn around. So you never say never. Right now, it doesn't look good, but you don't know. You don't know exactly what's going to happen.
No, you really don't. You really don't.
Now I see you're going for your brackets. You want to switch to the NCAA?
I think we'll get to
no,
we'll get to that at
NCAA.
NCAA.
NCAA is four A's. What are the other 2 A's for?
A.
A. That's I had enough of that.
Hey, which brings up a point. Now that you mention that, we can and I don't know, but I was a little bit surprised that the National Labor Relations Board supported the petition by the Northwestern football players that they are employees.
I'm not that surprised. Because I think that they want to promote. Put it this way.
But it only applies to private schools. It does not apply to public schools.
Oh, I didn't know that. I think, you know what, they're going to open a can of worms, and if they open it all the way, it's going to have really, I think I don't know how well this whole thing has been thought out yet.
No, I don't.
I would say, I was telling Andy, because we were talking about this at coffee one day. I said, well, you know what? If I was sitting on the other side of the table, say the university side of the table, I'd say, okay, you want this union, then this is what we're going to ask. There's going to be no more one and dones, okay? Once you commit and we give you a $50,000 scholarship,
You're here.
which here's the thing. You mean to tell me that when you're on the football team or the basketball team and you get a scholarship, so at Northwestern, that's worth $50,000 a year. That's $200,000
Right.
over 4 years if you stay.
Right.
You mean to tell me you're not being compensated, or that if they ask you to do this, that, they want you to come and lift weights at 7 in the morning, or the football practices from 1 till 3 in the afternoon, or whatever the complaints are, that you can't do that when you're basically getting your education paid for free? And the other thing is, look at the benefit you get out of a Northwestern education. If you don't, and most of them aren't going to be professional football or basketball players, what is a Northwestern education worth to you, especially if you stay for 4 years and the contacts you can make, other people you meet who are going to, run businesses, open businesses, be in law firms or be doctors. I mean, I would say that the compensation you're already getting is pretty substantial. And so I'm not really sure how big of a complaint they actually have, and I'm not so sure if they ever got to the point of getting to a negotiating table, how well they would like it, because I think what's going to end up happening is they'll end up forfeiting more than they ever gain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think so too. I think so too, and it'll be interesting how this plays out. Northwestern has obviously said they were going to appeal it. Monday night, next Monday, is going to be the NCAA finals. Final Four is Saturday. Florida versus UConn, Wisconsin versus Kentucky.
Well, I'm going to go with the I told you this last night. I'm going to go with the contrarian view. I know everybody that I've read anyway was talking that Michigan State was going to be among the Final Four and possibly go all the way. They didn't. So, and I know this is not everybody, but the other day I'm reading about Shabazz Napier, who's supposed to be the best point guard in the country, who plays for Connecticut, and Frank Kaminsky, who's had a really great year and a great NCAA.
I might be related to him. My mother's maiden name was Kaminsky.
You might be.
And
Played really well for.
It's spelled SKY. Hers was SKI.
Has played really well for Wisconsin. So you know what? I'm just going to throw it out there because I have no way of knowing. I'll just go with Florida and Kentucky.
I would agree with you. I'm stunned. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky is just a team right now that's peaking at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I give Billy Donovan credit for being able to take this team 36-2.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of people view the roster that he has here that really you don't have any top 40 NBA prospects on it right now.
Well, why would that surprise anybody, really? I mean, look what Butler did for a couple years in a row, not that long ago.
Yeah, but what they're comparing it to is the teams that he won, with before, when you had people like Horford, Joakim Noah.
Yeah, but those guys are, you know what? Those guys are lunch pail guys too.
Sure.
I mean, they're good ball players, but they're lunch. Let's be honest. Basketball, when you look at. Now, I didn't see the game that Duke lost to Mercer, and I'm not knocking Jabari Parker because I think he's going to be a really good player. But in that game, according to people that I know who watched the game, he basically sort of disappeared.
He disappeared. He was very. I didn't see it either. It was a day when I'm this time of year. I don't get to see much of anything. But it was kind of a Mark Aguirre type performance. I mean, you think back to that game years ago against St. Joe's. He disappeared in that game.
And when Kansas was eliminated, Andrew Wiggins, who's supposed to possibly be the number one draft choice of the NBA this year, ended up with 6 points, only took 4 shots in the second half when his team was down. He's the best player on the team. I mean, to me, if I was an NBA general manager, I don't care how good you are, I mean, talented you are. When something like that happens, that sends off a lot of warning signals to me. You're supposed to be the main guy. Okay, people will knock a guy like a Michael Jordan because, he took over games. Well, you know what? When you're the main guy,
He was the
and
guy.
it's crunch time, you better take the game over.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
not happening for your team, you better take it over.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You're not as good as they say you are. I don't care what your talent is. You could jump through the roof. You could do whatever. You're not that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that just is what I was listening to. It was either a conversation I was in on or I heard part of a game on the radio. But the commentator was saying, Michael Jordan was a guy who played. He did not take a playoff. And he compared LeBron James to Michael Jordan. He said, if you watch LeBron James, it might have been you. I don't know if I was talking to you about this, but he does not take a playoff. Kobe Bryant, when he was the best player in the league, I guarantee you he did not take a playoff.
Right.
When you have a young guy, a freshman, a guy who's probably 18, 19 years old tops, with all the physical energy you have and the ability you have, and you're supposed to be the best player on the floor, and you cannot muster a better performance than 6 points and only 4 shots taken in the second half, where are you? What are you doing? You must have taken a whole lot of time
There was
off
a
in
lot
that
of
game.
time. There was a lot of time taken off during that game. So, all right.
But back to what got me on this is
Okay.
I'm going to say Florida, because they're a team, and Kentucky, as you said, seems to be coming together as a team. I guess not so much Wisconsin, because Wisconsin has got a team concept. Kaminsky is having a great NCAA tournament. But when I hear like the kid from Connecticut, the best point guard in the country, you know what? You're going to have to show me. And the other thing is, if all Wisconsin has is Kaminsky and all Connecticut has is Napier, that's not enough, because this is going to be, and you have 2 strong teams in addition to that, in Kentucky and Florida, 2 teams that are sort of gelled. Who's going to end up the winner, especially when you're talking about college as opposed to the pros? I could see in the pros where a guy like a Jordan or a James or a Bryant could sort of take over a game for a lot of different reasons. But I don't see that happening in college with too many players. Mm-hmm. So I would rather go with the teams than the teams that are featuring individual players.
Okay, Monday night, Florida versus Kentucky. My pick.
All right, that's really tough because, here I have to say I'm thinking about the coaches, and I'm going to go with Florida. I admire what Calipari has done, because I think he won the whole thing and then basically lost his whole team to the NBA.
Right.
And for them to be able to reload this quick,
Yeah.
he's done an outstanding job. But my gut feeling tells me that in terms of coaching one game for a championship, I'm going to go with Billy Donovan in Florida.
I would take Billy Donovan on Monday night, but I think it's going to be a Florida-Kentucky final.
Yeah, I do too.
And I think Billy Donovan will get to join that list now it will be 4 coaches who have won more than 3 national titles.
Right, he'd be on that list with who's it? Bobby Knight, John Wooden.
No,
and,
it's John
no,
Wooden.
well, he'd be 3.
John Wood. No, wait a minute. No,
He'd be at 3.
He's won 3. That's right. Excuse me.
He would. He will
That's
have
right.
won 3.
I thought
if
he
wins
thought he
Monday.
won 3.
Yeah.
No, he did win. This would be his 3rd.
Yeah, there's only 2 that have won more than that. That would be John Wooden and
Adolf Rupp and Mike Krzyzewski. Rupp and Krzyzewski won 4. I thought Rupp won more.
Yeah, I didn't know. I you know what? I didn't even know that Rupp had won 4. I knew Krzyzewski was the other name I was trying to think of, and Knight won 3.
Knight won 3, and Jim Calhoun won 3.
Okay, so you're in very elite company there.
Yeah, I remember Billy Donovan when he was a guard at Providence, wasn't it?
Yeah, he played for
Rick
Pitino.
Pitino. Played for
who's
Rick
another
Pitino.
very good coach and very adaptable type of guy.
All right. So we got 8 minutes on by the old clock on the wall.
Well,
and
we're on basketball. I have to tell you, last night I'm getting in the car on the way home from Mariano's, and the last minute of the Bulls game is on. And they mentioned that it's because I had read the article about the previous game and the Bulls were at 41-32. They won their 42nd game, which means that in each of the 4 seasons that Thibodeau's been there, they'll be over 500.
They'll be over 500.
But I have to say that if you would have gone back to, what did the season start in November? End of October?
End of October.
Say, if you would have gone back to December, early January, and told me that the Bulls would have ever at some point in the season been 10 games over 500, I would have said, you're crazy. They ain't going anywhere. They have done a really fantastic job. And again, it shows you what playing as a team can do. The other thing I'm thinking of, you'll see if you read Cowley, which because I read the Sun-Times, he'll snidely refer to Thibodeau at times, his manner and his outlook on things. But I have to tell you this: what makes a coach likable to a player? And I'll say this: the most likable thing for a player is if you have a coach who is going to push you to be the best player that you can be, and you see that that's happening, no matter how tough he is on you, whatever his attitude towards the team is, that's going to be a coach you like, because you understand you're human, okay? You could take the money, throw that out the window. Yeah, of course. Does that count for something? Sure, you like to have the money. Every guy who plays a sport, whether it's an amateur or professional, wants to be the best that they can be somewhere inside. And when you see you have a coach that's helping you do that, that's a coach you're going to respond to, and that's a coach that you're going to like. I don't care what it sounds like. If you're an observer and it sounds like, oh, man, he's berating the team, he's whatever he's doing with them in practice, it doesn't sound right, throw all that out. That's not the important thing.
It's what happens on the floor.
Yep.
And I give him credit, and I give that team credit when you had Rose go down and they trade away Dang.
Yeah.
And everybody said, well, they got a tank now so they can get a first-round pick.
Right.
Everybody went bull.
Yeah.
And they played, and they came together as a team.
What have I said to you a couple times on this show when I think the idea of tanking has come up at different times in the course of the time we've done the show? And I think you asked me about that, and I said, hey, I go back to when Michael Jordan was early on in his career, and he had the, I think it was the broken foot. And they wanted him to just take the season off, and he said, no, I'm coming back for the end of the season and the playoffs. And my whole take on it was, yeah, they didn't go anywhere in the playoffs, but I think his attitude is the right one. I think you need to keep building on success. If you can get 42 wins instead of 27 wins, you got to get the 42 wins, because there's always going to be, even if you're rebuilding, there's always going to be guys left over, and you need to build on some success. You don't need to build, it's hard to build, like when the 76ers that one year won 9 games. How the heck are you going to build off of that? I mean, that's hard. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's much harder than if you had won 3 times as many games.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So I think you always have to be in that mindset.
And you keep in mind too that year when Jordan came back, and they made the playoffs with 30 wins, and they went up against Boston. That was the series when Michael Jordan hit 63 points that game. Now, you talk about how are they going to build. I'm looking at that and just wondering, like, how is Milwaukee with 14 wins going to build on next year? How is Philadelphia with 16 wins going to build on next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's tougher to do.
You're going to see what they do if there have been some judicious trades and some draft picks. And one of those teams, I can't remember who, has a lot of draft picks.
I don't know who,
I think Philadelphia might have a lot of draft picks.
I don't know.
We didn't even get too much into football, but by gosh, Jared Allen came to town and signed his new contract with the Bears.
Yeah, and the one point I would make on that is, and I think I said this to you last night, is at the end of his career, Jerry Rice did not make the team, but he was in camp with the Denver Broncos.
Right.
And when I saw that, I wondered, what the heck, Jerry Rice had to be 40 years old or close to it. And I'm thinking, what is Shanahan was the coach then?
Yeah.
What is he thinking? And then the more I thought about it, I think, well, when you put a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer like Jerry Rice, and you put him around a bunch of young guys or guys you want to see, how does this guy go about his business? This is a future Hall of Famer. This is a guy who, when he came out of college, nobody expected him to be what he eventually came to be. So you want to have people see and be around a guy like that, even if he's not going to. Okay, in Jerry Rice's case, he didn't make the team. Now Jared Allen is probably not going to be the same player stats-wise, productivity-wise, as he was even 2 years ago. But when you see the way this guy goes about his business, when you're on the field with a guy like that, he will make guys around him, I think, better. Even if he himself doesn't have the same numbers.
If he doesn't have the same numbers, but he's coming in, he's got a positive attitude, he's energetic, and with all the things that they did in the offseason, this was to me, this was one of the most important things, because you've got a pass rush now. Now I want to see how they're going to fill in on the draft, and that's probably something we'll talk about next time.
Yeah, well,
Since
okay, you're telling me we're at the end of the show.
John says
keep going.
How much time do we have, John?
Oh, no, whatever you want. John, I'm telling you.
John, I don't know how much. I didn't prepare much more than this. We could keep going,
Oh, well, we could always get onto the subject. We were talking last night, Jen. We were talking food and restaurants and stuff. We could always go different areas. But you know what? I know it's almost the end of the show. I think Jared Allen will help the Bears. I think I would say this. Even we had a guy like Julius Peppers. I know that he, the last couple of years especially, got panned. But when you're on the field, say, with a guy with the reputation and the work ethic that it took to get to the point in his career that a guy like, say, a Peppers or a Jared Allen or whoever you want to name that's in that category get to, I think there's a definite benefit to a team from having guys like that, even if they're not at their best anymore. And I think the Bears probably made a good move, and I think it's going to help them a lot. And I think what will happen, too, one of the benefits is some of those young guys like Houston and some of the other guys that they've signed.
Guy they got from Detroit,
Willie Young. Well, I think those guys will benefit, too, on the field, because Jared Allen is going to be a guy that you're still going to have to pay a lot of attention to.
Sure.
And they'll just benefit from that in a physical sense because, well, they're doubling Jared Allen. Somebody else is going to be singled. So
somebody else is going to be singled.
Yeah.
You've got a great run stopper with Houston. Mm-hmm. You got a great pass rusher.
Yeah.
Now the big question will be how they're going to fill in their needs and how they're going to fill it in through the draft.
Yeah,
and I got to wonder how their drafting philosophy is going to change now based on this.
Well, and you know what, Jen? I want to wrap this up when I make this point. But the thing I had said to you is Emery comes basically from the Belichick school, the Patriot school, and it wouldn't seeing what they've done, getting quantity for some need spots that they had, defensive line and defensive backfield. They could draft a guy that is not a need type of guy, but a guy that really think highly of at whatever the position might be.
One of the best athlete type
yes.
philosophies.
And that
best athlete available type.
Yeah, that might be the route that they go.
That might be the route that they go, and we'll be curious to see how that comes up. All right, well, that's just about ready to wrap this thing up for today. Yep, music's on.
The music's on, and I can't hear it, though. But
I'll
take
I hear it.
There we go. I'm too busy talking to hear it.
Yeah, you talk over it. All right.
Yeah, well,
that's going to wrap it up for another edition of the Armchair Experts. Thanks for joining us. We will catch you again next time, and good night, Ron Pezzapane, wherever you are.
Amen to that.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita. Our audio engineer is James Rohde. And the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is John Seconda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, April the 1st, the year 2014. Be safe, and thanks for listening.